Welcome back. So concerns are mounting over the Eastern Cape's disaster management capabilities to effectively respond to natural disasters. The Democratic Alliance in the province has raised serious questions about under-resourcing and how funds are allocated for critical disaster response efforts. Tomorrow, a provincial day of mourning will be held in the Dikoloni village, that is in Mthatha, to honor those who lost their lives. This comes as the Eastern Cape Premier Oscar Mabuyane visited the flood-stricken areas in Mquma and the Amatola district municipality yesterday, assessing damages and engaging with residents in temporary shelters. Joining us now this morning to delve into this aspect of more deeper around the concerns and the overall flood response is the leader of the Democratic Alliance in the Eastern Cape, Dr Vicky Knoetze. Dr Knoetze, very good morning to you. Thank you so much for making time for us this morning. Considering everything that has been done now since last week, the interventions, what's your assessment around how the provincial government has been able to respond to the flood, as well as the interventions that are required currently now with the mop-up operations from residents who have been left stranded, but at least some are in community halls? Dr Knoetze, if you can hear me, I was asking you about the Democratic Alliance's assessment around how the provincial government has intervened in this devastation, the flood devastation, but also looking at the mop-up operations currently, with some residents still feeling stranded and being housed at various community halls.
Aldrin? I hope you can hear me now.
We can hear you perfectly clear.
Okay, great. Aldrin, to answer that question, what we expect now is for a provincial state of disaster to be declared in terms of Section 27 of the Disaster Management Act. That will unlock much needed funds. But to really respond to that, in terms of the inadequate response of disaster management in the Eastern Cape, we've actually just heard that residents in Coffee Bay and Nkanduli have been left stranded. But I can assure you, there are definitely more people than that that have not had access to any kind of relief, because the OR Tambo district is characterized by villages that are quite far-flung. So I'm quite sure that there's a lot more people that haven't had access. But Aldrin, to answer that question really effectively, let me just shed some light on what our disaster management response looks like in the Eastern Cape. So first of all, they are severely underfunded. Out of a COCTA budget of around 1.6 billion, they were only allocated 11 million, and that is for 9 disaster management centers in this province, including the 10th, which is the Provincial Disaster Management Center. They are severely understaffed and under-resourced. So in terms of, let's just use the example of fire engines. In the Eastern Cape, we are supposed to have around 233 fire engines. In the 2022-23 financial year, the MEC of COCTA responded that we actually only have 62 operational fire engines. That's 26% of the fleet. And if we look at ambulances, we actually at any given time only have around 190 operational ambulances. That is also 26% of the fleet, because it needs to be 720. Then out of the disaster management centers, only 6 of those 10 centers are actually compliant. While in the APP of COCTA, just last week, it was revealed that only 14% of the municipalities in the Eastern Cape actually meet the standard legal requirements to respond effectively to any disaster. So when people ask whether the Eastern Cape could have responded faster, could have responded better, and could have saved more lives by an adequate response, those are the facts. And then one can see that given that, we are not able to respond effectively in a disaster situation.
Yeah, and with that said, when this was raised with the Premier last week, his response was more laying the blame at the doorstep of the South African Police Service, as an example, saying that the province only has one helicopter. This is now a SAPS helicopter, and that's the reason why the response has been so slow as well. It is also impugned on the ability to be able to respond faster. But you are saying that also the provincial departments also has a role to play in what we are currently seeing. Yesterday, for instance, we spoke to Zolile Williams, who's the MEC for Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs in the Eastern Cape. He says, as far as they're concerned, departments should put aside 2% of their budget for moments like these.
Aldrin, we are a disaster-prone province. Every single year, more than once a year, we've got severe disasters in terms of flooding, specifically, and heavy rain on the eastern side of our province. Like the Premier himself said last week, we have known that heavy rain is coming to our Tambo a week before it started raining. He himself said that we are left paralyzed and we need more resources in those areas. Yet we've known that for years. We don't have an early warning system. We don't have an adequate climate prediction system, and we don't have adequate response in terms of disaster management, which includes the funding, the staffing, and the fleet. And I want to add that my heart really goes out to some of these disaster management workers because they have their hands tied behind their backs. They really want to help. They have the heart for the people. They want to be out there to assist. But they don't have the resources, they don't have the funding behind them, and they don't have enough staff. So this disaster can really be laid at the feet of provincial government. We know that disasters happen, and it will continue to happen, especially natural disasters. But we have to ask ourselves, could we have been better prepared and could we have done more to save lives and to save homes in the Eastern Cape? And the answer is yes, we could have, absolutely.
Yeah. Then what should happen now? Because yes, the disaster came, it struck, and now it is the mop-up operations. We're still waiting for the National Disaster Management Agency as well as Treasury to release the funds. The Disaster Management Centre saying that it would be released in the month of July. But when money gets released, the concern that comes to people immediately is how will we make sure that this money goes to the intended projects and the money does not disappear, as are some of the cases that have been seen in the Eastern Cape especially?
Aldrin, yes, well, that is a major concern because in effect what it means for us to declare a provincial state of disaster or for us to have the National Disaster Centre activated, it means that we have now access to funds and we can circumvent certain procurement procedures to access those funds. And one of the major issues with disaster relief funding over the years, and I mean, there's so much evidence of this, is that it often does not either get used or there's no track really of where it is allocated to. So not following procurement procedures often puts us in a position where we are hamstrung in terms of making sure that there's transparency and accountability. However, our team in the legislature is fully prepared to make sure that we keep a close eye on those funds, where it is allocated, where it goes, in terms of making sure that there is accountability and transparency. But the question we need to ask ourselves before we do that is to make sure that everybody that needs assistance and needs relief is catered for. The other way to do that is to make sure that we follow what we call a whole of society approach. And we've already seen NSRI, Gift of the Givers, various departments and various individuals on the ground assisting. And we really want to thank and appreciate them for what they have done. But the best thing that we can do is to make sure that they are in the best possible position to reach out to everybody that still needs assistance. Eldrin, if I could just remind everybody that while we've already have 90 people that have passed away, unfortunately, we have 10,000 people that have been displaced, that are now in shelters and community centers that need food, that need blankets, that need assistance. We've got 2,600 people that have been left homeless. 1,000 people's houses have been destroyed completely and 600 partially. So we really need to look at this from a humanitarian point of view at this stage and appeal to everybody that is willing to join a coordinated effort to assist the people of the Eastern Cape in the OR Tambo district.
Well, then unfortunately, the very same people that are responding to calls like these then become victims of criminality, as is the case with the gift of the givers, allegedly them being extorted, extortionists demanding that they stop their operation because it is affecting their business.
Yes, Aldrin, that is really so unfortunate that in a time like this, in a time of major crisis and sadness in the Eastern Cape, that there are still individuals that are doing this to the very people that are trying to assist the people of this province, and probably people that they know that have been affected by this crisis.
Yeah. Just quickly, in conclusion, around the oversight, do you think perhaps what we saw in 2022 with the floods that affected parts of the Eastern Cape as well, and KwaZulu-Natal more predominantly, where the Auditor General was being brought in to give a real-time audit on a flood relief, that we should see a similar initiative this time around?
Yes, absolutely. I think that would be of a great help. What we also do need to keep an eye on is that some of these funds come at a time when the mop-up and relief efforts have already halted. And that is normally when it comes to infrastructure repair and infrastructure replacement. And that is where we need to be really, really careful, because that is normally very, very large amounts of money. And we need to ensure that that trail of accountability and transparency and monitoring where those funds are going continues well after the mop-up and relief efforts.
All right. Thank you so much for your time. The Democratic Alliance leader in the Eastern Cape, Dr. Vicky Knoetze, on the oversight that is required in moments like these.